Okay, so you've written a comic book and you're considering self-publishing, but is that going to be right for you, or is this whole thing going to be very difficult to do? Well, stick around because we are going to discuss that in today's video. This is Chris Baird from selfpublishingmadeeasynow.com, where self-publishing doesn't have to be so hard. In today's video, we are going to discuss how to self-publish a comic book step-by-step guide. So let's get straight into it. We're going to go through an introduction to comic book self-publishing. The first thing to remember is looking at the advantages of self-publishing. The first thing is creative control. And the reason why this matters is that you have control over exactly what's going on with your comic book, what exactly it looks, how it feels. You have all sorts of control that you wouldn't have if you went with a traditional publisher, or maybe you would never get it through with a traditional publisher. The other is the faster publishing process. That means from the beginning to the end, from the point which you first start working on your comic book to the point at which it's completed, it's really going to be a lot faster than if you're going with a traditional publishing house, where it goes much, much slower with regards to all of the processes and things like that they have to do in order to get the book through. The other is the higher royalties. You're going to earn a lot more money on each sale that you make of your comic book, assuming you choose to go with the self-published route. Now, what about opportunities in the comic book industry? The first thing is diverse storytelling. And the industry provides opportunities for diverse storytelling, allowing creators to explore unique narratives, themes, and perspectives that may not be as widely represented in other mediums. And that's a huge advantage over comic books. They go through exactly the things you're going to need when you're getting your book onto the market. And also, this particular market is a special one. It gives you the ability to express yourself in ways that others don't. The other is the collaborative nature of this medium. And when you're doing comic books, something to consider is the fact that you're going to have artists and you're going to have the people who are helping with formatting. There's an awful lot of different people involved in this process that in standard books, you're really not going to have as many as you would with the comic books, which is really exciting. And then you have the adaptation potential. Many comic books have a good chance of actually making it to TV, film, or other media that you wouldn't have with traditional books at the same level that you have with comic books. You can just look at what's going on with Marvel to get a better idea upon exactly the full potential. So, creating and refining your comic book. We're going to look at developing a compelling story and characters. But how exactly are we going to do that? The first thing is you're going to need an engaging plot. We're not just rambling on and on about some story within your comic book. No, we're not going to do that. You're going to need to make sure that that plot is really engaging. So from page to page, your ideal reader, as they're going through your comic book, you're going to need to hold them onto that. And that's something you need to consider with every aspect of the story and the plot that you're doing. In addition, you're going to have complex characters. We don't want these flat characters. We need nice, round characters that have all sorts of depths and flaws and things that your ideal target reader are going to be able to relate to, okay? The other thing is the conflict and stakes. This is the reason we actually even read comics or read books in general, is that something has to be up to stake. What is going to be lost if they don't read this book? In other words, as they're reading it and you're seeing the hero inside of your story that you're doing, there has to be stakes. If there aren't stakes, you don't have a story. So this is something to consider. I can tell you, I've read some comic books that just die flat because there's just not enough things at stake. And so you're going to want to consider that when you're putting your comic book together. The next thing is writing the script. You want to make sure it has a very clear structure, something that people are going to be able to relate to, and they're going to be able to, as they're getting into it, it's not going to be so confusing. It's going to be a well-written script following a clear structure, including acts, scenes, and the pacing that guides the story's progression in a way that you might not have if you were just winging it or by the seat, doing it by the seat of your pants, right? Where you're just going right through this entire story and doing it that way. The other thing is visual storytelling. We have to remember in comic books, there's an awful lot of graphics, so we don't have to say every little aspect of what's going on. We're using the visuals to our advantage when we're moving along in our story. The other is the dialogue and the character voice. As you're building out these characters, as we talked about, these round characters with flaws and abilities, you need to keep track of the voices of those specific characters, so as they're engaging in dialogue, that we keep true to the unique voice that each of the characters in your comic book have. Then we have storyboarding and panel layout. The first thing is the visual sequencing, to making sure that when you're doing the storyboarding, that you have this mapping out in the sequential flow of the entire story scene by scene. So you have a really good idea where this thing is going. We don't want to leave the impression that we are clueless with regards to the overall flow of the story. We're also going to have composition and framing. With the panel layouts, they play a crucial role in guiding the reader's focus and conveying the desired emotions or atmosphere. And you also have this idea with the strategic composition and framing techniques. They're going to be using like close-ups, wide shots, and dynamic angles in order to enhance storytelling and creative visual impact, which is really what it's about. It's about drawing your target reader in to the comic book, really pulling them deep inside of what you're trying to accomplish here. Okay. Then you're going to have the balancing action and rest. And the well-executed panel layout strikes a balance between action-packed sequences and moments of rest. We need contrast in what we're doing with your comic book, okay? You don't want to make it just pure action. That might be tempting, and you might think that that's what your ideal reader wants, but in reality, it gets old, and they just get tired of that. So we need to make sure that it's going between action and then this calm, relaxed portions of dialogue that's going on, or inner chaos that maybe some of your characters have between more action. Going back and forth between action and rest is a key element in storytelling, and in general when you're dealing with your comic book. Okay. The next thing is iterative revisions and feedback, and that means we're going to have continuous improvement as you go through it. You're going through a cyclical process as you put your books together, these comic books. You're going to make sure that you're learning and refining as you go. You want to make sure that it isn't going to be something where after you finish doing this, you're like, whoa, what the heck? I didn't learn anything new in the process itself. You're also going to have fresh perspectives. You want to get feedbacks from others. That is for your beta readers, critique partners, editors, anyone you can have taking a look at what you're doing to make sure that it's as high of quality as possible in terms of things that your target reader is going to want to read. Because we want to pull them in. We're not writing for everybody in the world. We're really just writing for our exact target audience and making sure that they're going to be happy with what we're doing. And if they're not, we need to pivot and make sure that we're doing something that they're going to really enjoy. Then we have refining the vision. So with these revisions, it allows authors to align their work more closely with their intended vision. And this is a thing that's a really hard one to fully capture, but you should have a vision going into this. What are you trying to accomplish with your comic books? And how exactly is the best way to go about doing that? And that's something you need to consider, okay? So artwork and illustrations. We're going to have to think about hiring or collaborating with artists. That's right. This is a comic book, right? Unless you're an artist yourself. So you have the first thing is artistic compatibility. We're trying to find artists that actually are going to have the same vision that you have with regards to your overall story. We need clear communication to make sure that there's open lines of communication and effective communication with these artists to make sure you don't get to the end of the project and it's just a misalignment and lots of wasted time and money and frustration for everyone. The other thing is you need professionalism and contracts. Do not do this based upon just some sort of a handshake or something. Make sure it's in writing so we know exactly how much the artists are going to get paid and when the delivery schedule is going to be done. I can't tell you how many clients I have in my one-on-one program who have worked with illustrators only to discover that the illustrators are incapable of actually keeping a schedule. And that's one of the reasons why many people who sit down with me in my one-on-one sessions, when we're going through it, we're going to take a close look at exactly who are you hiring and how do you find the right illustrators for your particular books. Now, in your case, with a comic book, you're probably doing a lot of the stuff yourself, at least initially. You can start hiring this stuff out as you continue on, especially once you have examples of what it is you specifically want. So, determining visual style and aesthetics. So the first thing you need to remember, it needs to be story-driven visuals. This is a comic book. It is a story. We want to pull people in, and the way that we're going to do that is considering the story's tone, genre, and themes to determine the visual style that aligns with the narrative. The other thing is the mood and atmosphere. We don't want just any random images. We need to make sure we're capturing a particular mood specifically based upon what's going on in the story. And you'll find this even in films like Star Wars, right? When they're getting down to certain planets, they're changing the music and the lighting and all sorts of stuff in order to pull the audience into what exactly they're trying to communicate. And then you have consistency and cohesion. You need to make sure that your style doesn't go shifting all over the place. Once you've figured out what exactly you're going to do, you're going to pull in even tighter on that and make sure that it is consistent throughout your entire comic book. Now, creating character designs and illustrations. The first thing is we're going to make sure we're reflecting personality and story. And the character designs, they should visually represent the personality traits and role of each character in the story. These illustrations should capture their essence, whether through distinctive physical features, clothing, or expression, effectively conveying their unique identities and contributing to the narrative. As you can see, it's all about the narrative. We need to make sure everything happening is pulling it back into that, in addition to balancing visual appeal and functionality. And this is like a difficult one, because if you only go for the visual feel, well, then we're going to completely miss out on that, the functionality. You have to consider how the design will translate into various poses, actions, and emotions throughout the story, ensuring that the design allows for flexibility and expressiveness. It's important to conveying the character's range of emotions and actions, and also being consistent to the character. Once you've established the voice and the way that character looks, you're going to need to hold that consistency, or your audience is going to get lost in the story trying to figure out, why is this character acting strange from page to page, okay? As opposed to, they need to be predictable based upon the way that you've built them out. These are round characters. We're not looking for flat characters here, okay? Round and consistent, all right? We're also going to need attention to detail and consistency. And that was what I was just talking about, to make sure you're not forgetting who exactly your characters are as we're moving forward through this process, right? Lettering and coloring techniques. We need to make sure we have clear and readable lettering. Do not choose some weird cursive script that nobody is able to read. I personally like some of the standard ones, but at the same time, you can just look and see what your competition is doing. And this means also in terms of your font choice, your size, your spacing, the placement within it, even the colors of the text is going to be really important. And so we're looking at enhancing the mood and visuals. Coloring techniques play a significant role in setting the mood and enhancing the visuals of the artwork. Consider color palettes that align with the story's tone and themes, and utilize shading, highlighting, and color gradients to add depth, dimension, and visual interest to the illustrations. This is really key to making sure that it's pulling the audience in and it doesn't distract, and yet it is very easy to read. And finally, of course, it's going to be the consistency and cohesion again. That means that when you're choosing these styles that you're using with regards to the colors and the lettering, we're consistent from page to page. We can have small variations, but it should still seem to be in the same comic book. So we're not shifting massively which font set we're going to be using for this whole thing. Okay, so that's a really important thing to remember. Now, formatting and layout. And the first thing here is going to be software and tools for comic book layout. You're going to have your graphic design software, and there's lots of popular graphic design software, including Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, Clip Studio, Paint, as well as a lot of other ones that are going to give you the tools you need to pull this whole thing together. You're also going to have your comic creation software. This will include things like Comic Life, Manga Studio, and Procreate, with the appropriate add-ons. They offer specialized tools specifically designed for comic book creators, and that's the type of tools you're going to want to use when it comes to putting this project together, right? Now, you're also going to need web-based comic tools, and these include online platforms like Pixton, Canva, and Make Believe Comics, and they provide user-friendly interfaces and drag-and-drop functionality for creating comic book layouts. These tools are often accessible from various devices and offer templates, stock images, and customization options to streamline the layout process. I personally like Canva. It is a fantastic piece of software, super easy to use. If you haven't tried it, give it a go, okay? Third point here, panel arrangement and page composition. The first thing is your visual flow and readability. You need to make sure that it's visually flowing from one panel to another. We're going to have variety and emphasis. And that's where we're going to incorporate a mix of panel sizes and shapes, as we mentioned earlier, to add that visual interest and emphasize key moments or actions. And so this is really a skill set you're going to want to develop. And there's a lot of online videos on YouTube and things like that that will show you exactly how to go about doing this effectively. You're going to have page transitions and cliffhangers. This one is so important. Do not take your audience for granted. When they get to the bottom of a page, you need to make sure it's pulling them in to get them to turn that page, okay? So if you don't have cliffhangers and you don't have page transitions, there is nothing going to keep their interest on this page, especially if your storyline is terrible, okay? And so that's the reason why a lot of these components all come together to really make this story and this whole comic book pop. In addition, it's really going to help your target readers stay in touch with what you're doing and really connect with you as an artist, okay? Third thing is balancing text and artwork. And the thing is that you're going to need complementary placement, making sure that the text is properly placed with regards to the images that you have in order to draw attention but not pull too much attention away from the other graphics on the page. And you're going to have readability and legibility. That means it's going to be really easy for people to read this thing. It's going to be just like candy for them to absorb it. They're reading through your comic book. It is amazing. The thing is finished before they even knew it. And that's where readability and legibility come in. You're going to have harmonious integration. And now this means you're going to aim for harmonious integration of the text and artwork where they work together to convey the story effectively, as opposed to where the text is sort of here and the graphics are over there and it just doesn't quite fit correctly, okay? So that's another thing. Then you have the printing considerations. You have resolution, image quality. This is something I've dealt with a lot with many of my one-on-one clients lately. Specifically, well, if it's too high, then it's not going to work. And which platform is going to work best? And that's one of the reasons I actually recommend Ingram Spark. It has a superior quality when it comes to printing out your books. The other is your color management. You're going to pay really close attention to this to make sure that the colors accurately reflect what you're trying to do when printed. Even if it looks like one thing on the screen, maybe it looks different when printed. So you're going to want to get some proof copies to make sure that everything's just fine. Then you have your bleed and trim to make sure that we don't have these white borders, but really that it's going right seamlessly across the page. And it makes that really fine touch that many books don't have, that are ignoring these issues like bleed and trim. The next issue to consider is choosing a printing option. One is print-on-demand services. And on-demand printing is fantastic because you're not going to be stuck with a garage filled with your comic books that aren't selling, okay? You want to make sure that they're printing them out for you, so when you really hit gold, they're going to be able to produce a bunch of your comic books. But if they doesn't sell so many, then you're not stuck with having to pay a bill. The other is the easy distribution. That's the reason why we really love self-publishing. They can order as many copies as they want. They'll print them out, and you're set. And then you get the flexibility and customization. They can almost do anything you can imagine when it comes to print on demand for your books. So you're going to want to pay attention to this on the whole print on demand side of things. The next thing is offset printing, and this is ideal for large print runs. You're going to be printing a lot of copies. And so if you already have a lot of copies that are being printed, this is going to be the highest quality and cost-effective way to go about doing things. You're going to get this superior print quality as they're dealing with these individual plates that are built to actually print only your book and giving you this really vibrant colors and accurate color reproduction, okay? You're going to have the versatility and customization. So offset printing, it offers a wide range of customizable options, including paper selection, finishes, and special effects like embossing or spot varnish. So there's a lot of advantages to going with this particular option of offset printing. You're going to be comparing costs, quality, and distribution options. Now, when we're looking at these ones here, we're comparing these ones. You have your cost considerations, okay? So when we're doing print on demand, it's going to be low as possible. You're going to find Amazon probably is the winner on this one. Quality assessment, you're going to make sure it's as high of quality print as possible. And that's going to be Ingram Spark. It's going to give you the top product on the printing of the quality assessment. And you're going to have your distribution channels to explore the different options that are available based upon what you're going for. But I would choose like Amazon if you're really going for massive distribution. But you can always check out my free checklist below in the description if you want to find out more, the easy way, the secrets to exactly getting your book on the market as easy as possible. Or just book a discovery session. I'll talk your book through you, see if we can figure out what's going on, okay? The next point is that you have distribution and marketing strategies. The first thing is the online platforms and marketplaces. You want wide reach and visibility. That's where Amazon and Ingram Spark and Draft Digital are going to come in handy for you. They're all going to hook you up with making sure as many people as possible are going to see your book. You have the convenient selling and fulfillment. That's why print on demand is by far the easiest way to go, including your ebooks. And you'll have reader engagement and reviews. Many of these online platforms have a maximum number of readers, so they're going to be a lot more focused on exactly what you're trying to accomplish with your book, and they're going to help you get those reviews you know you need. Okay. Next, selling at conventions and events. The first thing is you have targeted audiences. Go to conventions where your target audience is already going to be. They're going to love your stuff because you're choosing genres they're already there to see specifically. In addition, face-to-face interaction is a really powerful way to sell. You're going to see your target readers and you can actually sell them right there on the spot why they should buy your book. Whereas if they're on an online store, there's so many other books that you're competing with that it's difficult for them to actually see the value of your book. You're putting your face behind the book itself, and that is really compelling, especially in person. Okay. The next thing is network and collaboration. And at these conventions, you're going to meet other people, and these are artists and these are storytellers, all sorts of people you're going to meet who can help you with your comic book production. And this is fantastic. They will help market your stuff and you can help market their books. You give each other ideas. You really want to maximize the size of your network, okay? Now, direct sales through your website. Now, this is going to give you maximum increased profit margin, of course, because nobody else is taking a chip of the pay. You're selling it directly. You're going to get an enhanced customer experience because you're going to be able to do direct sales to them. You're not dependent upon anybody else, and you're not going to be selling somebody else's books. You're going to be selling just your own books, okay? So that's important to remember when you're getting started with all of this if you're selling from your own website. And the final thing is you have access to customer data. That means when they visit your website, there's cookies, and you're going to be able to trace what exactly they're doing on your website, okay? And when you look at that, that means you're going to be able to see if there's a hole in your website where people are coming on and then leaving because of something that you didn't quite see, as opposed to other sites. The downside, of course, with doing it on your own website is going to be that you have to get your own traffic, and that is a huge, massive burden, okay? Collaborations with local stores and libraries. You're going to get expanded reach and exposure because the reality is they want to help local authors out, so you definitely want to take advantage of that. You have your community engagement, and that would be collaborating with local stores and libraries. Fosters a sense of community engagement. It really makes you feel like you're part of the community. People will buy your book just because you're a local artist who's putting this comic book out, okay? So you want to really leverage that, and then support for local businesses and institutions. Maybe you can collaborate with these specific institutions. They're also making a profit, so it's a win-win-win situation for everybody. So, selling and promoting your comic book. Building an online presence and brand. How do we do that? We're going to do that by establishing visibility. We're going to make sure our book is everywhere possible. And that's one of the reasons I mentioned the Amazon, Ingram Spark, Draft Digital route. That ensures we get a massive distribution of our specific book. Creating a personal brand. And the way that we're doing this, of course, is that we're building it around ourselves. We're talking about our book and doing all sorts of stuff in order to build a presence around ourselves, not just the book itself, but ourselves, okay? And engaging readers, an online presence which enables direct engagement with your readers. You can interact with them through comments, messages, or live events. And that is a really effective way. In addition, utilizing social media and targeted advertising. So the first thing is we're going to expand a reach and targeted audience. And this is what many things like Amazon and stuff, you can run your ads directly at your target audience, which is a fantastic way to test out whether your book's going to be popular based on the title, the subtitle, the cover, the description, and many of these other things. Engaging content and interaction. And this is also dealing with the social media platforms and seeing where you can send direct messages to people and really engaging. When they engage with you, they're going to also connect with your book. And then finally, it's cost-effective advertising. And the fact is you don't have to spend $1 million in order to get into advertising. It's actually as expensive as $1 a day should be sufficient in order to get you started on Amazon, okay? Next, engaging with fans and comic book communities. Active participation, that's where we're going to engage with the fans in the communities. They're already there. They're already in discussion forums. You're just talking to them about them talking about your book. It makes you more human and more likely to buy from, okay? Exclusive content and behind scenes. we're going to want to offer our fans a whole bunch of different things that maybe they wouldn't normally get, like exclusive content. So that's going to keep them hanging around. They want to see like the little bits and pieces we chopped out. Why did we do it? They want to see behind the scenes. How exactly did you go about drawing this? What tools are you using? There are a lot of questions that your audience would want to know, and you, by interacting, you're going to be able to really hone in on this. Attend comic conventions and events. This is a really powerful one we already discussed, because you can really do networking. You're able to do first-person sales. There's a whole bunch of advantages there, okay? Obtaining reviews and testimonials. This is the most difficult aspect of self-publishing at all. It's getting reviews, okay? You're going to reach out to readers and reviewers, so we're not sitting passively waiting for reviews to come in. If you do, they're going to be negative. So we're going to reach out to our readers and reviewers to see if they're willing to read our book. And I can tell you a comic book is going to do a lot better than many of these other types of books, okay? We're going to utilize author-reader platforms. There's a number of them like Goodreads, Amazon, BookBub, a whole bunch of ones where we're going to use those to get the reviews we need. And we're going to engage with early readers. We're going to give them advanced copies of our book in exchange for honest reviews for the book. So in conclusion, you can see that publishing a comic book doesn't have to be so hard, okay? It can be done the easy way, and that involves making the right decisions that are right for you, making sure you're paying attention to all of the key concepts that come into this whole process of getting your comic book onto the market. My question for you is, have you started working on a comic book that you're looking at getting onto the market? And if you have already got one on the market, how are the sales going for it? And have you broken any of the rules that I mentioned here? And check up above me for more video answers to your self-publishing questions. Thanks.